Good day, everyone. My name is Paulino H. Carrillo Jr., a third year BS Ed Mathematics of Central Mindanao University, and I'm going to present today my research proposal entitled Grade 7 Student Attitudes Towards Using Modular Materials in Understanding Algebra. This video presentation will include introduction or background of the study, objectives of the study, significance of the study, related review of literature, description of research methodology, sampling method, questionnaire, as well as the references. So without further ado, let's begin. First, let us understand the keyword of our title. The challenges in teaching algebra have been well documented, and among those challenges, attitude is a fundamental factor that cannot be ignored. It refers to a learned tendency of a person to respond positively or negatively towards an object, situation, concept, or another person. Attitudes can change and develop with time, and once a positive attitude is formed, it can improve students' learning. The effect of attitude on students' performance in algebra might be positive or negative, depending on the individual student. It is regarded by many researchers as a key contributor to higher or lower performance in algebra. Another factor in those challenges now in learning algebra is the use of learning module instruction. The experiential theory of learning believes that students have a natural desire to learn. Thus, when there is a failure to learn, it is not caused by students' inability to learn, but rather to problems present with the learning situation. The teacher does not impose his own views on the students. It is an instructional material which possesses the qualities that will make the individual an independent learner, self-pacing and progressing at his own rate, finally giving him the feeling of self-satisfaction, the very essence of modular instruction. Thus, part of the challenge of this study is the use of the modular instruction materials to grade 7 students and to investigate its effect on the students' achievement. Therefore, attitude and modular instruction is in response to this problem. This study seeks to investigate grade 7 students' attitude towards using modular material in understanding algebra. With this in mind, the researcher will implement a Year 7 algebra intervention that focuses on students' attitude towards using modular instruction in understanding algebra and examine the effect of the intervention upon students' perception about the value of learning activities in modular approach of learning. The research questions in this paper are: did the students believe the specific learning activities in modules enhance their understanding of algebra? 2. Why did the students acquire a like and dislike towards algebra subject? And 3. What are the students' attitude towards learning algebra using modules? The study of students' attitude towards using modular learning materials with associated factors and their connection to academic performance is certainly worth chasing research because it is the pursuit of construction of a module, measurement and evaluation, and the effects of this modular instruction in the cognitive behavior of the students in Sinudag Tautaw Bukidnon during this new normal learning. Hence, the results will provide teachers, students, parents, and other education stakeholders in Barangay Sinuda with information that will help to develop strategies to improve students' learning of algebra and eventually in all mathematics aspects. Related literature. Attitude towards learning and teaching algebra have been widely researched. Studies of attitude towards algebra have developed significantly in recent decades. Student attitude towards mathematics is given various definitions in the literature. For example, Kibris Liugyo, 2016, defines attitude towards mathematics as liking or disliking of a subject, a tendency to engage in or avoid mathematical activities, a belief that one is good or bad at mathematics, and a belief that mathematics is useful or useful. They establish a moderate relationship between students' attitude and performance. When teachers use humor as a teaching strategy, they concluded that the enhancement of students' positive attitude towards algebra can boost students' performance in mathematics. In these studies, attitude is generally described as a predisposition to respond to a certain object either in a positive or a negative way. D. Martino and Zan 2010. In other words, attitude towards algebra is general emotional disposition toward the school subject of mathematics. Haladina, Shaughnessy, and Shaughnessy, 1983. Meanwhile, several studies have demonstrated that attitude towards using modular instruction in understanding algebra and other related subjects to mathematics are directly and significantly associated with students' performance during this new normal learning. Because this approach contains a series of activities, each of which start with the teaching instruction addressed to the learners, explanation, exercises, and generalization. A module is defined as a self-contained, independent unit of a planned series of learning activities designed to help the students accomplish certain well-defined objectives. Booker 2000. Modules provide active participation of students in responding and a way to meet areas of individual interest and help the teacher extend more individualized instruction in school and at home. Patena et al. 2013. With this, the learner is able to proceed at his own rate, choose his own learning mode, select along a variety of topics, identify his strengths and weaknesses, and recycle if necessary. The learner works by itself and verifies the correctness of his answer by comparing it with the correct one. It also gives the students some provision whereby the students can obtain an immediate feedback. Horn, 1999. According to Norton, 2007, evidences suggest that modular instruction meets the needs of today's students, more learning, and content. It serves as a learning materials for both students and teachers. The modules provide evaluation activities which relate to the content of objectives of the lessons. However, there is no provision for pre-test and post-test activities in each module. Booker 2000. There is highly significant difference between the students and the teacher's assessment of the characteristic of the modules, with the teacher's assessment higher than that of the students. In addition, module instruction provides the basis for a close interaction between the learner and the subject matter that the learner is called upon to respond actively in the interaction with an instructional program, and that the rate at which the interaction proceeds are governed individually by learner. The literature shows that students' attitude is affected by some factors. They include such factors that include connecting algebra with real life, using instructional materials, teachers' personality, teachers' content area knowledge, bad instructional practices, lack of commitment by students, and teacher classroom management. According to Yilmaz et al. 2010, factors responsible for students' liking of mathematics or algebra are good teaching and course enjoyment, while factors such as boring teachers, students' failure to solve algebraic problems, or even to understand just simple concept of algebra in a real-life situation. Algebraic problems, failure to understand the topic well, friends talking during lectures, receiving a bad grade for examination are related to the student's disliking of mathematics. The reviewed study shows factors influencing students' liking or disliking of algebra and mathematics. These factors are related to students as learners, peers, instructional practices, and classroom or school environment. The present study used this theoretical foundation to build an understanding of the various factors influencing students' attitude towards learning mathematics. It then expands our understandings regarding different factors influencing students' attitude towards mathematics learning. Thus, this study envisioned the attitude of students towards using modular instructional materials and to facilitate the inquiry into the effectiveness of modular instruction in understanding algebra. The study aimed to determine whether the use of module in grade 7 student materials would show positive results as compared to the lecture discussion approach in teaching. Let us now proceed to our methodology. In line with Horrigan, Levy, and Carroll's in 2016, view that there is no single instrument that can guarantee the complete truth, a parallel convergent mixed research approach will be adopted in this research. The researcher will combine qualitative and quantitative methods to achieve a comprehensive view of the problem at hand. These methods complement each other's weaknesses and strengths. Both quantitative and qualitative data will be simultaneously collected, analyzed separately for the purpose of establishing the facts. This is because the attitude is primarily measured by attitude scales that show whether the attitudes are positives or negative. Nevertheless, finding out the factors influencing attitude calls for qualitative methods, according to Yilmaz et al. 2010. Hence, the methodology of this study was essentially a case study. Participants. The aim was to capture the views of individual students from grade 7 students because issues concerning algebra learning for grade 7 students have been not addressed in SINUDA. 5-year 7 student with the age of 12 to 15 years old will participate in this study. The study student was selected on the basis of convenience. The homes or houses of students participant was located in a lower or middle class sub-served in Outer Kitaw-Taw, Bukidnon. The students had done a very limited amount of work on patterns in earlier years, so this was their first formal introduction to algebra. This study, 6 1-hour and half-hour classes will be conducted by the researcher over a 3-week period, with the help of a grade 7 teacher who recently completed a master's in education and had a particular interest in the use of modular material in developing students' understanding of number and other algebraic concepts. The researcher will secure a copy of Intervention that will teach the 12 critical lessons designed to introduce the following aspect of generative algebra: transformational activities, substitution and solving, the concept of variable, word description, symbolic equation and graphs of functions, connecting materials with tables of ordered pairs, understanding and transforming activities including construction of algebraic expressions, the substitution of values into algebraic expressions, solving for unknown in linear equations with the variable on one side only, and solving linear equations where the unknown was on both sides of the equal sign. The example below, Table 1, is taken from the Algebra Book 2 teaching notes. It attempts to link materials, natural language, and symbols emphasis on algebra structure as recommended by Stacy and Cheek 2004. In the example below, ones were represented by the blue counters, negative ones by red counters, and colored blue, pink, and cups were used to represent n and negative n, respectively. Once familiar with the process such as those illustrated in Figure 1, students played specifically gain competence and solve the world problem. Now, let's proceed to data collection. At the end of the intervention, the students will complete a mathematics attitude questionnaire survey about algebra that is composed of open-ended questions in a 5-point Likert scale survey with 16 questions. The scoring was reversed for negatively worded items. Each scale attribute consists of 2 items, one of which were positively worded and one negatively worded. The 8 attributes and relevant sample items are shown below. The associated citation indicates the importance of this process and suggestion on how they will develop. Role of a balanced activity in developing an understanding of the meaning of equals. The role of modular materials in helping students to develop an understanding of linear functions. The role of modular materials in helping students to develop an understanding of algebraic expressions. The role of modular materials in helping students to understand the process of solving linear equations. The role of algebra games in modules in developing understanding of algebra concepts. The role of course in developing confidence to do algebra. The role of the course in developing confidence to do high school mathematics. And the student's perception about the value of learning algebra. Meanwhile, questions gathered qualitative data regarding emotions, liking, disliking, and the reasons behind the liking or disliking of mathematics, as well as identifying. Meanwhile, a question gathered qualitative data regarding emotions, liking, disliking, and the reasons behind the liking or disliking of mathematics, as well as identifying factors that affected students' learning of algebra. There were 5 open-ended questions that are: do you like algebra? If yes, why do you like algebra? If no, why you do not like algebra? I like mathematics, and when I study mathematics, I feel. These questions were developed to provide students a place to express their feelings and opinions without restrictions. They are designed to elicit strong reactions, thoughtful answers, and opinionated responses. The final data set comes from the student interview. The 8 attributes associated with the survey form the basis of the interviews that will be conducted with pairs of students at the end of the study. Data analysis. There were 2 data analyses, quantitative and qualitative. The researcher will use a quantitative method to analyze quantifiable portion of the survey using SPSS 23.0. Descriptive analysis. Correlation analysis and binary logistics regression will be performed. Data that will be obtained from closed-ended items will be coded and entered in the SPSS computer program. At this point, negative items are scored in the reversed order. Mean scores will be calculated for each statement of attitude aspect to get variable which are used in the subsequent analysis. The first research question of the study required to establish the student's attitude towards mathematics. Towards this end, descriptive statistics such as mean and standard deviation will be used where mean values of all attitude aspects are averaged to get all or overall attitude. One-way ANOVA with this study level as an independent variable will be used to account for the observed mean differences in the overall attitude and attitude aspects. Qualitative analysis. The researcher will use a descriptive method to analyze the response to the open-ended but quantifiable items. Thematic analysis will be used to analyze non-quantifiable data from the open-ended items, textuals and interviews or oral. The analysis will be done manually and will be followed by a number of stages. The first stage involved familiarization with the data whereby the data were transcribed in such a way that textual data were recorded as close to verbatim as possible from the student's handwritten responses. Then, the transcription will be read in a repeated manner while writing notes of initial issues. In the second stage, the data will be coded and verbal expression relevant to each code were identified. The third stage involved sorting of different codes into the emerging themes and pulling together all relevant data extracts within the identified item themes, which are organized by using a table. In the next stage, the themes will be reviewed to ascertain the relationship with the data set. The themes are then grouped into different subjects based on the research question. Finally, verbal extracts were used to support the identified factors pertaining to students' liking, disliking, and those that affected students' learning of mathematics. The references of my study will be followed. Again, this is Paulino Carrillo Jr., and this is my research proposal.